Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is a video that I am pretty passionate about. I've kicked this idea around for a few years, honestly, and I would not think that it was needed at all. It feels very self-explanatory to me, except for the fact that I have spent time on the bookish internet and I have seen some of the most bizarre recommendations ever if it's all about the vibes. And for me, it is about the vibes. I feel like this is almost the mission statement of my channel, is to let you know the types of books that I enjoy, not just in a synopsis or genre type of way, but specifically the vibes, the emotional impact. It's just the feeling of the book. To me, if you can know where you compare to me and my reading taste on that and what I'm saying and how it compares to what is too sad for you, what is too happy for you, what's too cozy or insta love or what have you, then you can better choose books that you will enjoy based on my reading wrap-ups and my recommendation videos. And this is really important to me. This is a big reason why I started my channel, because I kind of wanted to give exactly what I was looking for and having a difficult time finding, especially 7 years ago when I was watching BookTube for the first time and was getting into romance books for the first time and was having a difficult time finding creators who read a lot of romance, I liked their personality, that we had similar reading taste, that I was really enjoying watching their videos. I was getting a lot of recommendations from them. I was happy and excited to be there. I was having a difficult time. I was finding a lot of creators that I really enjoyed that didn't really read romance. And then I was finding some creators who read a lot of romance, but we just didn't have the same anything. And so that was a big part of why I wanted to start a channel in the first place, again, long before I even did start. But while being on the internet, there have been a couple of very specific instances of seeing instead of recommendations that have bothered me so much, because I think that the person doing it is delusional and has completely missed the point of everything and doesn't understand the art of giving recommendations. Just truly have like stuck out to me as what an awful recommendation. I have to find my notes because I was actually supposed to do this in April and May and June. So it's like way back here. Okay, one of the things that I think has to be addressed with this and is important as someone who tries to avoid recommending problematic authors, who really believes in diversity in your reading, as all of that is important, that is me. I think that this is a stumbling block. I think that this can be a huge issue. So the two instances that I think are just the most bizarre things I've ever seen in my entire life is I saw somebody recommend that instead of A Court of Thorns and Roses, you instead read the 5th season. These two books I have read, and I cannot tell you how different the vibes are. I cannot begin to explain to you how ridiculous this is for me. They are both adult fantasy. They are both by women authors, and they do feature main characters that are women. And that's about it. That's really their only similarities. Now, I have given both of these 5 stars. Again, we are going to kind of ignore the problematicness of anything for the purpose of this video. I have other videos talking about all of that if you are curious, okay? I have given both of these books 5 stars. I like A Court of Thorns and Roses much, much more. I understand that the 5th season is a better work of art. I understand that the 5th season is tackling much more difficult and important topics. I understand that it is a level of intricate and detailed that is very difficult to achieve. Like, I am only saying good things about it. However, I did not enjoy the 5th season. It's not an enjoyable book. It is often, I feel like the content warnings in this are glossed over and are not really mentioned. This book opens with the main character finding her toddler beat to death by her husband and the father of her children because she is magic and had hid that from him. And when her son, her toddler, accidentally revealed that, her husband, in a fit of rage and hatred, beat him to death. I don't know about you, but that, if I had known that, truthfully, that would be enough of a reason right there for me not to read that book. And I will say, by far, that is not the only horrible, difficult thing in this book. It is worth reading. It is incredibly well crafted. It is doing some very important and interesting takes on racism and trauma and prejudice, and the cycle of generational trauma is really kind of what this book is about, through the lens of a science heavy fantasy world, I would say. A Court of Thorns and Roses doesn't really do that, does it? It has some difficult moments, it has some people that you hate, but it is kind of what started romanticy, the modern day movement that we are currently seeing. It is a poor human girl who goes to the fairyland and falls in love with a fairy lord and has to overcome trials and obstacles in order to be with him. That is, at its core, what that book is about. Again, I have read both of these. I have given both of these 5 stars. A Court of Thorns and Roses much more represents my reading taste than the 5th season. I'm not picking up anything that is marketed as being like the 5th season, because I know that that was kind of an anomaly in my reading. It's not the type of vibe I feel tense just thinking about it. It's not the type of vibe that I'm looking to reach for over and over and over again, while at the same time fully believing and agreeing with the fact that N.K. Jemisin deserves her flowers, that she deserves all the praise and all of the hype that she gets, and probably more so, and that for many people she's going to be their favorite author. That person is not me. The other one that I saw, which again I found ridiculous, was that instead of Fourth Wing, you should read The Poppy War. I have not read either of these books, but because they are so popular, I know a good amount about them. Fourth Wing is a romantasy with dragons, right? And then The Poppy War, I'm pretty sure everybody dies, and I'm pretty sure everybody dying is not even the worst things that happen in that book. It is about war and is based in real historical wars, and is kind of, I think, a lot about the price of war and war crimes and what it does to your soul as a human, and is not in any way anything I've ever heard described as a good, fun time. I've heard that it is brilliant, I've heard that it is impactful and devastating. I've never heard it being called fun. And I think a big reason why these two, instead of this read this recommendations, happened was because they viewed A Court of Thorns and Roses and Fourth Wing as being by problematic authors that you shouldn't support, and instead wanted to recommend books by BIPOC authors. And so they recommended the 5th season and The Poppy War. And I can understand that sentiment. I simply disagree with the practice of, because this is more important, or because this is by a BIPOC author and it's an adult fantasy, that is automatically a good substitute for this fluff. And I think a big reason also why people do that, and I am not in this camp, so know that, I loved ACOTAR when I read it. I loved it, absolutely adored it. That's how I found booktube in the first place, was I wanted more books like ACOTAR. Is like this kind of dismissive and condescending opinion that those books are just not very good. They're not very good, and you don't have very good reading taste because you like them. And what you need is some culture. You need to read what true greatness is, and these books are so much better than that, that this is what you need. Editing me here. I also take issue with this because there are marginalized authors writing representation in every single type of book that you can possibly want to read. Every genre, subgenre, trope, theme, tone, all of the things. Marginalized authors exist in that space. Romantasy is not the most diverse of genres. I think that it has a ton of room for improvement in that area, but those authors are still there. They are still there. They are still writing romantasy and writing their lived experience and the representation in their books. And so to me, it indicates a lack of research and a lack of reading in the genre that you're trying to recommend instead of, again, probably because you look down on it. But if you're going to recommend instead of this problematic romantasy, you want a diverse romantasy, that exists. You don't have to go into a completely different type of fantasy to get representation, diversity, books by Black authors, book by BIPOC authors, queer authors. It doesn't matter what you're looking for. It exists. So let's say representation is your number one thing, is the most important thing. You take that over the vibes, right? You're looking for chronic illness representation. You're looking for trans representation. You're looking to find characters with your lived experience. And perhaps it's not as common as it should be, and you're having to go in a wide variety of genres and tones and vibes to find the representation that you want. I still think being aware of what the tone is helpful in giving the recommendations. Because as we all know, if they die at the end versus if they are able to find happiness and joy and peace, those are not the same thing. And I don't want to get one expecting the other. And again, like, it can be the same person reading both of those, but in many ways, they are not for the same reader. And I'm very curious. We are in the intro, and I'm over 10 minutes. This is bad. But I'm very curious if you, as a reader watching this, if you really care about the vibes like I do, or if you are always picking up completely different things. You love when you don't really know what it's gonna be. It doesn't matter to you. Like, you don't care really what the vibes are. You're here for a variety. That is not me. I like my variety firmly in my comfort zone. But I'm just very curious about you and how you feel about this and think about this. For me, giving a recommendation is literally all about the vibes. For me, receiving a recommendation, deciding if I want to read something, if I want it on my TBR, it is about the vibes. And there is nothing that makes me more frustrated than acting like because two books are in the same genre or subgenre that they are good recommendations based on each other. This annoys the ever-loving shit out of me. I cannot stand this tendency. It is so ridiculous to me, again, that because you loved ACOTAR and you are maybe trying to get some diversity on your TBR, the correct recommendation for that is the 5th season. It boggles my mind. I don't understand it. I can completely understand you being a 5th season reader over an ACOTAR reader. I cannot understand, oh, you loved ACOTAR, you should read the 5th season. I don't get it. And again, I'm using these titles as examples because they are very well known, they're very popular, and they are specifically ones that I have seen. Just because it's in the same genre does not make it the same vibes, does not make it for the same reader. There are plenty of romance readers that what they like and what I like have almost no overlap whatsoever, and we both read almost exclusively romance, right? It's a big genre. All the genres are big genres. While it's not perfect, we have more access to books than ever in the history of the entire world. More access to the printed page or the digital page, right? So there's so much room within a genre. I cannot begin to tell you how much it frustrates me when the only thing those books share in common is the genre, and because of that, it's what's recommended to you. Also, I do feel like Google, Amazon, Goodreads, all that, they're the biggest offenders. It's like book like XYZ, and it's literally just books in the same genre that are popular and are bestsellers. Nothing in common specifically. So some of the things that I think really affect the vibes of a book is the character dynamics. For me, again, I'm a romance reader. You're recommending me a romance. If I want a couple like this specific book, the character dynamics in that relationship are the most important factor. It is not the trope that is the most important factor. It is not the setting that's the most important factor. It has to be the dynamics of that relationship. Same thing with a found family. The dynamics of that found family are going to decide where on your ranking it falls, and someone else's preferences might be completely different from yours, but it is important to note that it is a defining factor on whether or not you love that book, whether or not you love those relationships. I think, especially as a character driven reader, the dynamics of the relationships, platonic, familial, romantic, sexual, political, what have you, the importance of them cannot be overstated. It can't. It cannot. The other thing is the tone. If you want a werewolf book and you loved this werewolf book, I would not automatically then reach for this werewolf book. Instead, one is extremely dark, tense, and stressful. One is lighthearted and cozy and humorous. Tone is more important than trope or subgenre or genre. It is more important than saying, I want a book with dragons. What tone do you want the dragons? Are the dragons talking to you? Are they cuddle buddies? Is it a shifter? Are they killing everybody? What is happening here? I think that that is incredibly important. It's important for you to know for your own reading, and it's important for you to know giving the recommendation to somebody else, because who are you recommending it to? This is a big one for me, and that is content warnings, because content warnings are different for all of us. What is no problem at all, or what is a deal breaker? What is going to ruin our day, or what's not going to affect us? And that's different for everyone. And because of this, I really dislike the saying that content warnings are like a shopping list, because I can understand liking really dark things, not having any sort of issue with that, and even being interested in that specific dark content. I don't have any issue with that sentiment. I do have an issue with acting like content warnings are a fun plus. I really dislike that, because content warnings are there for us as individuals to not read something that we have issues with, right? It has been traumatic for us. Perhaps we have a phobia, perhaps we have a lived experience, what have you. It doesn't matter, and you don't have to explain it to anybody, but it is literally there so that your hobby, the thing that you're enjoying for fun, does not put you in a mental place that you don't want to be. Next, I have devastating devastation. You cannot have everybody die and it be a good recommendation for someone who wants a happy ending, who wants all their characters to be safe. It cannot be cozy if everybody dies. I don't understand why this is difficult for people to grasp. Just because it takes place beside a fire baking scones does not make it a good, fun time. How emotionally devastating is it? I don't like romances with a happily ever after where everything turns out okay that are gut-wrenching. I'm well known for complaining about this. It's not for me. It might very well be for you. I don't disagree that it deserves the right to exist. But for the love of God, don't recommend it to me just because it was a marriage of convenience and I'm just going to watch these people suffer for 500 pages. On that note, after the suffering, are they happy? For me, again, I grew up reading like fantasy and stuff. I read plenty of books where my characters died at the end. I don't want to ever do that again. I don't. That's why I love romance. I love the guaranteed happily ever after. I love knowing that we're gonna make it. The vibes can be enough. For me, it is perfectly fine if the only thing the book really has going for it are the vibes. If the vibes are what I want, then we are vibing. Hello. Next, I have romance. I think that romance is pretty polarizing. A lot of people want absolutely no romance, only the slightest amount of romance, or a ton of romance. And then even within a ton of romance, do you want it to have open door sex scenes? Do you not want it to have any sex scenes? Do you want it to take place over the course of one book, or does it take them 8 books to get together? These are all preferences within it. But I think that for me, like, if you're recommending a book to me, romance should be your number one thought. Not that just that is a romance genre, but is there any romance in it, and how does the romance play out? I want to circle back to the same trope or character type doesn't mean that it's a recommendation. You can have an assassin in two different books, and those books are, again, possibly, probably not for the same reader. I think that this is really important when you are doing a recommendation by trope or character type, right? Books with assassins, books with werewolves, as we've already mentioned, books with forced proximity. You need to be clear on the vibes. I'm begging you all. And I just feel like this is something that should not need to be explained, and yet clearly does, because too many people are giving recommendations with absolutely no thought to the vibes. Next, I have the prominence of the storyline. It's an arranged marriage. Again, is the whole book about that, or is that the smallest thread in the story? And just be clear about that. If you are truly seeking to try and give people books that they will enjoy reading, and not just trying to get people to read books that you enjoyed reading, which is very tempting, I won't lie, because obviously I have an amazing taste, and if we disagree about a book, you're wrong. We all know this. So I want everybody to read my favorite books, and I want you to love them, and if you don't love them, you just didn't get it. You're so wrong. And that's your fault, not mine. But in all seriousness, if I do know something about what you like or what you enjoy, I want to take that into consideration. And additionally, if I'm doing a recommendation video or a wrap up, I try to make clear why you may or may not like this, regardless of how I felt about it. Another polarizing one is coziness. Some people love it, some people hate it, and there's a lot of middle ground in there, but it's an important note to be aware of. Also, more hard hitting doesn't mean better. I think a lot of people think that light and fluffy equals useless or unimportant or poorly done, and I could not possibly disagree more. There is a skill required in making someone feel happy or good or cozy after reading your book, regardless of length, regardless of content. It is, to me, easier to write devastation. It is easier to write emotionally manipulating stories. Now, it's not easy, and it's still a skill to truly evoke emotion in someone through the written page, regardless of the emotion that you are trying to evoke. It's a skill to do that. But there is often an importance given to writing emotionally devastating things that is withheld from writing emotionally comforting things. And I wish that that were not the case. And I think that, again, part of my channel and part of what I talk about here is trying to remind people that that is not so. For me, perhaps the most important thing about whether or not a book recommendation can be for me based on the vibe and the tone and all of that is the worst thing that happens. The worst thing that happens in the book. How bad is it? I need to know. I need to know. There are many books that I won't read because I'm scared, because I don't know how bad it gets. I want to know if it's on page. I want to know if it's off page, historical reference. I want to know if it's dragged out for 30 pages, if it is a 3-sentence mention. I want to know what the worst thing is. Obviously, there's a lot of horrible things that can be included in fiction, and they can be included not just to be trauma porn or something like that, but for a purpose. But for me, as a reader, I need to know what the worst thing that happens is. I really, really do. And I so appreciate it anytime somebody goes out of their way to let me know what that thing is. I'm really curious if this is something that you care about, probably a little bit if you made it all the way to the end of this video. What's an immediate no for you? Maybe that's something simple like it's cozy. You don't like cozy. So yes, you like the idea of this plot and these characters, but you don't like the cozy tone. You don't like that subgenre at all. Or maybe it's something like a content warning where it triggers you and you can't read it. And if you want, what is a book that you absolutely love that you would like a recommendation for, and not just it also has dragons and it's also a romance, but actual, I want a book like this. Like this. I want something that brings the same feeling that I had reading this book. To me, that is by far the most important thing I'm looking for with a recommendation, more so than anything else. These books can have nothing to do with each other than they gave you the same feeling. That's a good recommendation for me. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.